Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the One Note Podcast. I'm Lexi Linderman.
I'm Avery Hill.
And I'm Lyle Allenstein.
As you can see, we're sitting in some different seats today as I get ready to take over as football editor, but wanted to give these two their proper send-off. We have a lot to cover today. Matt Campbell, some players, and D'Anton Lynn spoke to the media on Tuesday after Penn State's 10th spring practice. Today, as we're filming, would have been their 11th, so spring ball is kind of coming to an end pretty fast. But Campbell kind of talks about the defensive line a little bit. D'Anton Lynn talks a little about the green dot, but we'll start with the defensive line. Campbell mentioned a few standouts, but I'm just curious what you guys kind of took away from what he said about them.
I think we should just start by the fact that Matt Campbell once again highlighted just this change in size and strength on the interior. I think they've put on north to 400 pounds. I think he said it a couple of weeks ago. Really, you could tell by some of the additions that they made through the portal, just the need to get bigger. We've talked about it in the past, but like some of those undersized defensive tackles that Penn State has had under Deion Barnes in the past, obviously you look at Zane Durant, Xavier Gilliam, who have been productive, but it's clearly a philosophy shift with D'Anton Lynn and Akeka Malloy coming in. But you look at Keanu Williams, Siali Taupaki, Armstrong Nodium, who looks huge to me. I saw him on the sled. Like, obviously, they all like moves when they lift it up, right? That thing vibrated like a lot. Okay, so but a couple of those guys on the interior. He mentioned a bunch, and he essentially ran through most of the depth chart. But I think a couple of guys newcomers that I think are noticeable are Alex McPherson, Colorado transfer, played at IMG out of high school, which is obviously a national powerhouse out of Florida. But he got a lot of burn for the Boulders his freshman year. Played in 10 games, missed 2 due to injury, blocked a punt on special teams, and he's only a sophomore. As they kind of like revamp this room a little bit, you look at the interior, and they've got some of those old veterans like Keanu Williams and Siali from UCLA. But then you've got those young guys, obviously Ivan Kamaju, Max Granville, kind of as they reshape this room a bit. But it's one of the, I'd say, unproven rooms of this Penn State team, right? Between just the experience across the board at other spots, between all the transfers from Iowa State and some of these returners. But it's going to be really interesting with how that group shapes up, especially because, Max Granville's banged up with an injury right now. Still haven't seen him yet during spring ball, and I don't assume we're going to see him at the blue-white practice, but you can't assume. So we'll see where that goes. Mason Robinson, one of the older guys in the room with redshirt junior eligibility status, is now out for the year. His third season-ending injury, which is a tough blow. I think it was denied Dennis Sutton, who set up Pro Day. Who's excited to see him as one of the guys, for the future of this room. That being said, they both played for McDonough, so you can take that with a grain of salt. But yeah.
Bias? Is that what you're saying? Some sort of bias?
Could be some bias. Yeah, okay. It'll be interesting to see. Next week at media, the new crew is going to get Akeka Malloy and Christian Smith, so you can get further update with that. But that's kind of just what I took away from it.
Yeah, I think on that same accord, this, especially that defensive line room, the edge rushers, the defensive tackles, has kind of been that group to watch, going into the season. It's a lot different than a lot of the other rooms, given that it's not mainly comprised of, I guess, Iowa Staters, at least at the top. You still do obviously have Elijah Cornell. You have Ike. You have other guys, around that, were under that system. But you also have, again, Tapaki, Keanu, McPherson. And it's a good blend. You have guys who are in what Tapaki's in, is it 7th or 8th year?
8th.
Yeah, it's weird to say 8th.
Young man, as Matt Campbell referred to him.
Yeah, well, I did ask Keanu if they call him Monk. They said, yeah, but we don't care. So Keanu's entering, I believe, his 6th year.
Yeah.
He's, I think he's getting his real estate certification while he's at Penn State. So you have that veteran experience, and then you pair that with the youth. I think one of the biggest transfers, or the most intriguing transfers to me on that front, to me, was Alex McPherson. I think a guy with his size, his length, playing at Colorado, having the experience that he had. He blocked the punt there. He showed some good flashes in the pass rush game. I think that there is a lot of potential for him. I think, when he's working for, obviously, edge rushers coach Christian Smith, I think he has a great opportunity to just, really get all the technique down. As a freshman, he's raw. Like, he was coming out of IMG, but he was still rated a 3-star. Obviously, stars isn't, aren't the whole thing, but obviously he had to work his way up and earn the position that he got at Colorado, and I think it'll be very interesting to see how they shape out. I do think that it is, it's good for Penn State at this point to be able to say, hey, our defensive line is really stepping up. That's going to really make a difference. I mean, you talk about getting to the passer, stopping the run. That's going to need to happen this year. It was something that kind of slipped a little bit last year when guys maybe aren't getting to the quarterback as they need to. Obviously, Dennis Sutton would do it, but sometimes he wouldn't. You look at the run game, they gave us some pretty bad run performances. You look at the UCLA loss, giving up, I believe, over 200 yards on the ground. The Northwestern loss, just about every single loss, the run game didn't look pretty good. And even in other cases, they've had plays where the run game just wouldn't show up. So it'll be very important for this defensive line to get back on track. Obviously, they had talent last year, but it's a whole new era, and you definitely want to set that standard up front, which is something that Penn State and Matt Campbell have kind of emphasized early on.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Ike, and I think that's a really interesting wrinkle to all this is because I feel like we've talked about the defensive end room a lot just because of how young it is and how you have Max Granville, you have Yvonne, and then you have Alexander McPherson, like you were talking about, Avery. But then you also have Ike, who, has been with Matt Campbell at Iowa State. Matt Campbell talked a lot about him on Tuesday, kind of saying that Iowa State, they kind of did a three-man front, and it's very different from playing defensive end in a four-man front, which is what D'Anton Lynn is going to do. So Ike's kind of had to adjust to that, but Matt Campbell feels like he's had a really good spring and is really taking strides. And so it can be interesting to see how he kind of does in this defensive end room with Max Granville, with Kamaju, with Alexander McPherson. So I think it'll just be interesting to see how much playing time Ike gets because you have those four guys. Like, honestly, like, any of them, I feel like any two of them could start. Like, any combination of the two could start, which is just super interesting because like we kind of talked about, they're all really young. There's not really a proven guy. In there, McPherson has probably played, I don't know, he probably hasn't played the most football, but like him, Kamaju, and like Ike are kind of all on that like same level where like they've played, but not a ton. Like they haven't started at that level. And then obviously Max Granville played a little bit his freshman year, but then had that injury last year, so we don't really know what he's going to look like coming off the injury. So it's just a very intriguing defensive end room, and I don't really know exactly how it's going to shape out. Maybe we'll get a better look into that at blue-white practice, but honestly, we just don't know. We might not know till week one because Matt Campbell's kind of talks about how these position battles aren't going to be shored up until the fall. So.
Yeah, I will say, like, the thing about Ike is he has probably, I would say, played the most football. I don't know exact snaps and everything like that, but, I mean, he was probably Iowa State's, especially on the defensive front, their best pass rusher, but at the same time, he wasn't as efficient as a pass rusher. And that could, be from a variety of factors. Obviously, you look at technique, you look at scheme, you look at, their opponent. There's so many different reasons why, at least from a numbers perspective, he wasn't as efficient as he could have been. But I do think there's opportunity for him at Penn State to, kind of pair with a diverse range of guys. As we just talked about, you have people that are young. On the inside, you have guys that are a little bit older, and the experiences of obviously Kaika along with Christian Smith. I think that'll be very valuable. I mean, I think when you're looking at that defensive line, as I said, it's going to be important to get to the pass rusher. To get to the quarterback. But I think that, if you're Ike, to be able to also not be, this, I don't want to say feature, but, the main guy in the defensive pass rush, that's a good thing. There's a pressure off of you. I would expect for him to take a step up this year, which I would say for, honestly, the whole team, because obviously last year wasn't ideal, even from Iowa State's perspective with how they ended the season.
Yeah, Ike, I just looked it up. Ike has played in every game since 2023, and he started every game last season. So he's played a lot of football, which could be really important for this defensive end room that just, honestly hasn't played a lot of football. So.
Yeah. My last thing with the defensive line, and Ike especially, is Campbell compared him to Will McDonald, who was a first-round pick by the Jets 2 years ago. Who he also might have been traded, to be honest with you, because the Jets front office is horrendous. But I thought it was interesting because it was this Giants front office. If you're seeing this, I can help.
He's still a Jet.
He's still a Jet.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But I just thought it was interesting, that comparison, because Will McDonald was a freak athlete coming out of Iowa State. But he highlighted some of the growing pains that he had as well with adjusting to his scheme. So I just thought that was an interesting comparison.
Yeah. Let's move to a different position battle that Campbell kind of talked about on Tuesday, the running back room. Obviously, that's kind of been one that a lot of people have been looking at. You're trying to replace the production of Nick Singleton and Kate Allen, which is obviously not going to be an easy feat. You've got Carson Hansen, who was Iowa State starting running back last year, put up over 900 yards. You've got James Peoples, who was behind two running backs at Ohio State. And you've got Quinn Martin Jr., who didn't see the field until the Pinstripe Bowl last year and made the most of that. So I just want to ask you guys, if it was up to you, like who would be Penn State starting running back, but who do you think is going to be Penn State starting running back?
If it was up to me, I'd put Quentin Martin as the starting running back. I just think his versatility can give you a lot more than what both James Peoples and Carson Hansen can do. I think he's entering camp. I don't know where it stands right now. Entering camp, I'd assume he'd be the number 3, just by the way that Matt Campbell in his February press conference talked about how James and Carson should be a 1-2 punch, be a great 1-2 punch. But the thing that Carson Hansen is going to be the starter week 1. That's the guy who's started, or the last 2 years he's been the starter for Matt Campbell, and 3 years ago he was the third down back, I believe. But like he's proven he understands Taylor Mauser's system. I think it's when I asked Matt Campbell about the running back competition, just to evaluate it, he gave like a progress report on the 3 guys we've been talking about. Also shouted out Cam Wallace, the only guy that scored a touchdown from the running backs on Saturday. But I think leading with Carson Hansen as the first guy that he updated progress report says all that you really need to know. Like, there's no reason why he shouldn't. He's the oldest guy in the room. He's got the most experience. He's got the familiarity with the scheme. But I think all 3 guys you're going to see, right? I don't think there's any reason that, especially in the non-con schedule, that they all don't get touches. I asked Quentin Martin, because we had him at media, I asked him about, I'm like, what's your workload at, like, receiver right now? Like, are they putting you in the slot? And he said, yeah. And he's like, I love playing wide receiver. I think if we put me on a linebacker, it's a mismatch, and I'm taking me any day of the week. So that's another thing you could just add, right? It's another, like, spark, especially, where you don't really know what this wide receiver room is going to look like. We have an assumption with Chase Sewell, Brett Eskildson, and Kobe Howard being the top 3. But if you can get a mismatch out of the backfield and you can still play all these 3 running backs, like, why not give Quentin Martin some snaps out of the slot?
Yeah, I will say for me, who I would expect to start, or if I had to pick who would start, Carson Keyswetter. Okay, I'm joking. But I would
IUP.
Yeah.
Could find my
there we go.
IUP.
IUP. But James Peoples, I would say James Peoples. James Peoples, just because of kind of on a similar perspective, when you talk about versatility, I think that obviously Carson Hansen, who they have said is in the best shape of his life, I'm sure he's put in the work this offseason. He is more of your bell cow. I don't think that's going to limit his production at Penn State. I think he receives more than 100, I would say 130 carries would be my over-under right there for him. I don't see him as a 200-carry guy at Penn State. I don't think he needs to have 200 carries unless Penn State is running the ball like 500 times a game, obviously. But I think when you compare him and James Peoples and Quentin Martin Jr., when you talk about versatility, I would give either James Peoples or Quentin Martin Jr. the edge. But the reason why I will go James Peoples over Quentin Martin Jr. is just the fact that he has seen the field more. I want to see more out of Quentin Martin Jr. On a consistent standpoint. Obviously, he played really well in the Pinstripe Bowl, but you can also talk about the fact that Clemson had like no one.
Penn State was missing 4
or
5 offensive line starters.
Maybe that says something about Clemson, but I mean, Clemson was very hurt up front.
Shout out Tom Allen.
Absent up front. Not a lot of players up front. Was Peter Woods correct? I'm not going to name any other players because
Parker.
There we go.
I forget the first name.
Yep, him. Yep. TJ?
Yeah, I think it is. I didn't want to get it wrong.
Yeah, I was about to say Parker McDonald. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's because it's Will McDonald.
Anyway, Clemson fans don't attack us. But either way, I mean, I do think that James Peoples, he's a guy that's had experience, played in both of his college football seasons, went to the college football playoffs twice, of course, lost this year, not to Texas, but to Miami, and won the national championship the year before. I think that him playing behind basically Bo Jackson, C.J. Donaldson, I'm blanking on Ohio State's running backs from the year before, except for Trayvon Henderson,
I was about
of course.
To say. Yeah.
But I just think that he has the experience to do it. You talk to Savon Huggins, and he's like, hey, this guy's getting more explosive. He's having fun with it. I think that this is a year that he can really put it together. But I think at the end of the day, the number one running back battle doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. I think I could see Penn State using them exactly how they need them. Quentin Martin Jr., again, you talk about a guy that, can potentially line up as a receiver and make plays in the pass game. You're in third down situations. You need someone to go out there and at least run a route. You're going to put in Quentin Martin Jr. You're in situations where you need a yard, you need a couple of yards, or you just need someone to really wear down the defense. That's when you're going to throw in Carson Hansen. But I do think that Carson Hansen will eventually win the job. I just think his familiarity with the scheme gives him a leg up. But I could see really honestly, this kind of shift throughout the year. I mean, we just watched Katron Allen and Nick Singleton share a backfield for 4 years. Obviously, it's new leadership, but it shows that if they really wanted to, they would.
Yeah, I also expect Carson Hansen to be the starter. I think with all the running backs, like Carson Hansen has the highest floor, but probably the lowest ceiling in terms of playmaking. And then James Peoples and Quinn Martin are kind of the more unexperienced, but have a really high ceiling. Like they can be really versatile, really explosive. And so I think you'll definitely see them a lot more as the year goes on. And I think it's really interesting that they're using him a lot at wideout. I think like a big aspect for Nick Singleton across his career was he just really wanted to get better at being a pass-catching running back. And eventually he did do that, and he was a threat in the passing game, and Penn State relied on that a good amount, especially in 2024. He had that touchdown. I think it was against Wisconsin. Yeah, that was incredible catch, things like that. So I think keeping that trend going with Quinn Martin Jr. would be really good for this Penn State offense, especially because obviously wide receivers have struggled. They've had to rely on the running backs to catch some passes. But now that the wide receivers are expected to be at least better, but like we say this every offseason, so like I don't really know. But like they're expected to be better. You know, Kobe Howard obviously has a lot of buzz around him right now, and then Brett and Chase are kind of a little more proven guys. But having Quinn Martin also, you know, with them as a catching running back, I think is a really good wrinkle for this offense. He was taking, at least at the last practice we saw, he was taking the first reps when running backs were catching out of the backfield. So that's just more proof to you that like he probably will be catching passes out of any of the running backs. But James Peoples is also really interesting just because he does have that experience playing at Ohio State. And Campbell kind of talked about how he had a really good day on Tuesday. He's finally kind of fully adjusted to Penn State because he's the guy where like he's not familiar with the place and he's not familiar with the scheme, whereas Carson's familiar with the scheme and Quinn's familiar with the place. So he's kind of coming in completely new, but it sounds like he's adjusting pretty well at this point. So I think we're going to see all three of them kind of like we talked about, and it'll just be interesting to see how it kind of shakes up as the year goes on because obviously, like you said, Avery, Singleton was the guy for the first however many weeks of the season, and then Katron was the guy. Like it can change. It just depends. You ride the hot hand. It's how interesting to see, you know, how that kind of shakes up across the year.
I also think that they're going to need to kind of spread it out. Like, obviously, they didn't have to last year because you have two of what was considered the best, I would say the second best running back duo, in my opinion, obviously, with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price at Notre Dame.
The amount of times that we've said that is actually hilarious.
But so one of the best running back duos in the country, like that's the time where, okay, you don't really need to split up. But, I mean, when you look at Penn State's running back room, like behind them, it's who? Cam Wallace, Deontay Sheffy. I'm missing anybody else? That's it.
A walk-on Amari Glover will arrive in the summer.
Okay, walk-on Amari Glover. Maybe he gets a chance. Maybe he sees
Three-star for a walk-on, though, is pretty good.
3-star for a walk-on is pretty good. That's a preferred walk-on, to be clear. But, yeah, I do think that Penn State's going to need to really spread it around. You don't have a guy like – not saying that Carson Hansen or Quentin Martin Jr. or James Peoples can't take 150 carries a year, but – I don't think they're the type of running backs that should take that. I think that they're at their best in their fresh, keeping each other fresh. I think you're going to see Cam Wallace see the field. I think at some point you might see Deontay Sheffy see the field. I mean, he's a guy who has. I thought that and I thought when he was at Stay High, I thought obviously I got a chance to cover a little bit. I thought he would move to receiver. He was a little smaller at that time. Obviously, he's gotten a little bigger, but he's going to have to do some work at Penn State, which obviously Penn State so far this season has done really well at putting size onto different players and things like that. But he's a playmaker. He's dynamic. I would be very interested to see how that translates to this level. Obviously, he was previously committed to Syracuse. And
took a visit to Virginia Tech after decommitting, actually.
Yep,
which I think is crazy after James wouldn't even offer him at Penn State. But anyway.
Yeah, it's funny. That's a funny dynamic. But yeah, I mean, I think he's dynamic. I mean, I would not be shocked if we see him even just in garbage time and he's making plays. He can get in on kick return, things like that. I mean, I haven't seen him kick return at Stay High personally. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention, to be completely honest. But I think he's a playmaker. I think that is a room that is thin in numbers, but deep in terms of talent. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that all shapes out.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, let's switch over. I kind of mentioned in the intro. D'Anton Lynn talked a little bit about the green dot and what the expectations are for that moving forward. They don't really have a set plan right now. They had the linebackers working with it, and Lynn also wants the defensive backs to get some work with it because that's what he did at USC. His primary green dot guy was Kamari Ramsey, so he had a safety wear it. And I don't know if that's going to happen here at Penn State, where they've always had the linebacker wear it, and I think Matt Campbell has kind of talked about how he usually has a linebacker wear it too. But what do you guys just think? Do you think a defensive back at Penn State could wear the green dot? What do you just I just don't know. What do you think? Predictions for the green dot. Let's go with that.
I wasn't at the Lynn scrum, so I've not talked to him since he's arrived, so I don't really know what it sounds like when he's talking. But my takeaways are he doesn't want to reveal anything, right? So so that's just where I stand on that. He could have been saying whatever, but if Cooper Ebel is not the one wearing the mic next year, I think there's going to be a decision made that is the wrong one. He's worn the mic the last at least 2 years. It might have been 3 for Iowa State. He's got that familiarity doing it under Matt Campbell. But I've talked to all of the 3 Iowa State transfer linebackers both times they've been available, between Ebel, Caleb Brzina, and Caleb Bacon. And they were when they were in Ames, Ebel was the guy that wore it. Brzina was the backup, and Bacon saw reps with it just because he was a veteran guy in the room, at practice, that is. So they made it pretty clear that Ebel is the guy and Brzina was the guy who, if something were to happen to Ebel, Brzina would check in. And I think there's no reason for that to change. I asked Ebel, I'm are you the one that's been still primarily wearing the green dot? He's like, yeah, I'm still doing it like I have in the past. But he also said every single linebacker is getting reps at with the mic. I'm just not the mic, with the green dot. And I'm just and that just lines up with what Lynn is saying about how he's experimenting with everything. So if the guys in the secondary are going to get it, I wouldn't be shocked. But when Marcus Neal was asked in February, did he even wear it at all? At Iowa State at practice or anything? And he was I think he said I did it at practice at one point midway through the season just because we had so many injuries across the board. But he was that's just not what I do. And if there's going to be anyone in the secondary that I think is going to wear it, I think it's going to be him. So.
Yeah, I think on a similar court, I don't expect someone in the secondary to wear it. You're at a point in the season where, there's no point in revealing a lot, unless you're running Luke Reynolds at Wildcat. That was an interesting takeaway. I'm surprised that we got that out of. Not we, but
it was a player. It was AJ Brand.
Yeah, so someone
wide receiver
did not get media trained, specifically by anyone that's media trained. James Franklin, to be very clear. But either way, I do think that at the end of the day, it probably will be a linebacker. But at the same time, the green dot is simply really for communication. I think that it should easily go to the person who can most clearly communicate. The person who obviously knows what they're saying, what they're doing, and the person that understands the defense the most. So, I think at the end of the day, that's, a spot or a position where you're not really worried too much about, safety's wearing it. As long as they can communicate, it's fine. And we're also in a day of football where it's positionless. You have hybrids, you have guys coming down, making plays, and you'll probably see that throughout the year, whether it's for Denton Lynn or just across the country.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that they are experimenting with it. I think it's good if everyone has that ability to communicate, because the last thing you want to happen is there's a lot of injuries and you're forced to give the green dot to Davian Collins, and he just has no idea how to relay information to the defense. So I think it's important that they experiment with it. But Lynn basically said, this is what he said, quote, "It really just comes down to what individual handles the green dot the best. Obviously, I think we can predict that will be Cooper Ebel, just because he's been doing it for 2 years. So I don't know if anyone would be better than him at handling the green dot. I don't know. We'll kind of see. But yeah, Lynn does not want to reveal anything. Like I kind of said, he was asked a few times who's been standing out to him this spring, and he was like, we're still evaluating everyone. We're still evaluating everyone. We're still evaluating everyone. So it seems like he's not telling anything. He's just a guy that, he doesn't really give that many long answers. He's just kind of very straight to the point, and it goes the same with the green dot. So I don't think we'll really know until right close to season. But to round up, NFL draft a week from today, 6 days from today when you guys are watching this tomorrow. But just kind of want to touch a little bit on it, because by the next time we film, the next pod comes out, Vega is probably already off the board. The Athletic did a 7-round mock draft, had Vega going 15 to the Buccaneers. It kind of seems like he could go anywhere from that 14 to 32 range. But I'm just curious, if you give me your round 1 mock draft for Vega, where do you think he fits best? Where do you think he ends up going?
I can start. I think he fits best with the Baltimore Ravens.
I was right.
What is that, pick 14,
Yeah.
I believe?
Should have been the Raiders pick.
Pick 14. I think that would be A.J. Brown is a Patriot. Anyways, let's stay back on track. Let's stay focused, everyone. Let's stay focused. I do think that would be a very good fit for him to play in an offense as dynamic that allows him to move, that allows him to make plays. I think that, anytime, obviously this is a new era of Ravens football, but anytime you see the Ravens, you're expecting to see something crazy. I mean, Lamar Jackson is still playing quarterback. That hasn't changed. Max Crosby is not lined up on the other side. That's the only difference. He won't have that advantage of, maybe having to block him in any whatever scenario during practice. He'll never get that opportunity. It's unfortunate to some, not it's fortunate to others. But yeah, I do think that obviously he becomes the only Penn Stater to be drafted in the first round. I would leave room for a surprise Denai Dennis Sutton because edge rushers sometimes will fly up the board for absolutely no reason, even though I think there is a reason for him, given his size and his potential and things like that. But I'm expecting Vanga to be the first and the only Penn Stater off the board in the first round, and I think the Ravens are a good fit for him.
Vega, I'll go Steelers. He just took a top 30 visit.
I thought you just said Ravens.
Well, if I have to pick a different team, I would have said the Ravens. I know we got to... but Vega, Steelers, just took top 30 visit. They could use some O-line help. I think he's the only first rounder. I think Denai and Zaki are going to be mid-seconds to early thirds. And I honestly, the rest of the draft, as far as Penn State products goes, I have no idea. I think Nick and Katron could go anywhere between 3 and 5. I'd be shocked if Drew Shelton fell later than the 5th. And then everybody else is a wild card to me at that point. I know Tyler Duzansky's rated by ESPN as the top long snapper, but I hopefully, for him.
Whoa. By who? Because there's like 3 different ESPN reporters that have.
I think it was Mel Kiper.
I think Kiper had him at 2, unless he's updated it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think number 1 was Basso. Number 3, I believe, is the guy from BYU, Grimes. He had a really good combine performance. What's the score thing? What is it called? Like the grade?
RAF?
Yeah, the RAF. His RAF is like the greatest of all time.
So I don't know.
So just some brief research on long snappers, guys.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy.
And Drew Aller's going to get picked eventually.
Yeah. It was Jordan Reed who had Tyler Duzansky as the number 1 long snapper. But yeah, I think outside of Vega and Zaki and Denai, you don't really know where any of these guys are going. For Vega, my pick would also be 14 to the Ravens, but if I have to, I don't know. I think it's the Ravens or the Steelers, honestly, because I don't see, maybe the Bucks go
Chargers.
for him. Maybe, I don't know. I just think, I think the earliest he goes is 14, and the latest is probably to the Steelers at 21, I think it is. Yeah. So that's just kind of my range for him. But yeah, a lot of the other Penn State prospects, you just don't know. Even Denai, I've seen some mocks have him in the 4th round. There's just no way to know where these guys are going, especially Drew Aller. Some teams might think he is going to be their next franchise quarterback and take him in the 2nd round, and some might think this guy's footwork, you can't fix this. Let's take him in the 6th. It's just you really have no idea where Drew Aller is going to land in this draft. Zaki, I think, is a surefire day 2 pick, if I had to guess. And then kind of like you said, Lau, everyone else is just Zane could go as early as the 5th and as late as the 7th. We really just don't know. That's the interesting thing about this draft for Penn State is we really just don't know. I would guess 8 players get drafted. That's what most mocks have had. So that's just what I would guess. But obviously, we'll see next weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say it's crazy to see how this all changed because 1 year ago we're thinking, there's at least 3 first-rounders at Penn State. 8 players are going to be selected in the first 4 rounds. Now it's are they even getting drafted? And they have even more players than they did, before or around this time, I believe. Yeah, because Trevor Pena hadn't transferred yet. Obviously, Mark Campbell's not in the draft, but things like that. A lot of things have changed since then. So it's a very deep class, but the expectations aren't as high on the back end on where players are getting drafted.
All right, everyone. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the 1-0 podcast. Let's take some time, say goodbye to these guys. Obviously, awesome 2 years on Collegian football staff. Proud to call them some of my best friends. Awesome guys. Gonna miss them. But that's all we have for today. For more football coverage, you can find us at psucollegian.com. Click on the football tab, and you can follow us on socials and also subscribe to our weekly newsletter. You can find that also on psucollegian.com. See ya.
Boom.